What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be covering everything you need to know about the new game mode Fracture in Black Ops 3. I'm going to go over exactly how it works, how much score you get, basically everything you need to know about this game mode, as well as sharing a few tips at the end of the video to help you succeed in this game mode. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so let's get right into how this game mode works. The goal of this game mode is to deposit core files, which are these little things here that enemies drop, into the Fracture location, which is this area right here. It does move around the map. Every player, no matter what, will drop at least one of these core files every time they die. Enemies will drop a red core file, and this red core file you can pick up and you can take into the Fracture location to score a point for your team. And teammates will drop a blue core file. And with the blue core files, if you touch a blue core file, you simply deny it, so you just make it disappear. This means for the blue core files, you can't use those to score any points for your team, you simply deny those points for the enemy team, because for them, it's a red core file. So when you do pick up a red core file from an enemy player that's died, you don't immediately score any points for your team. What happens is it goes into your inventory, and you can see how many red core files you have in your inventory right down here on this little icon. You can carry a maximum of 10 of these, and you have to take them back to the Fracture location to deposit them for points. If you die while you have these core files in your inventory, you will drop all of those core files as red core files for the enemy players, as well as one extra for your death. So let's just say you're carrying 4 in your inventory, and an enemy kills you, you will drop 5 red core files for the enemy players. This means that you typically don't really want to be hanging on to a bunch of core files in your inventory, because if an enemy kills you, that's a ton of core files for them to get. One thing that's important to note here that a lot of people haven't really considered is you drop red core files for the enemy players, even though they were blue core files for them at one point because they were their teammates' core files. So when you pick up a red core file for you, that's a blue core file for the enemy team, but as soon as you pick that up and they kill you, it converts it to a red core file for them. So that means they can now use that to score points, whereas before they could only deny it. So keep in mind, every time you pick up a red core file for you, you're now converting that into a red core file for the enemy team if they manage to kill you. Next up, one of the biggest questions I get about this game mode so far is, what is that little orb that hovers above an enemy's shoulder or a teammate's shoulder? What does that orb mean? So enemies will have a red orb above them if they're carrying at least one of the core files in their inventory, aside from the one that they would drop by default anyways. So this means they have at least one core file there, and if you kill them, they're going to drop at least 2 core files, one for the kill and the one that was in their inventory. Teammates, on the other hand, will have a blue orb above their shoulder, and this just means the same thing. This just means that they have core files in their inventory, and typically you want to escort them and keep them alive because they could potentially be carrying a bunch of core files that could be scored as points. So once you have these red core files in your inventory, you have to take them back to that Fracture location to score points, and all you have to do is stand in the Fracture location. But one thing to keep in mind is they don't deposit immediately, especially if you're carrying a bunch of them. If you're only carrying 1 or 2, they deposit extremely quickly. It's just like bang bang, they both deposit themselves. But if you have like 5+ core files in your inventory, it actually takes like a second or two to deposit all of those core files, and you'll be really vulnerable in that particular situation. The enemies can still kill you while you're doing that. So just keep that in mind. The more core files you have, the longer it takes to deposit. And each one that you deposit will score 1 point for your team. So if you carry in 5 core files and you're able to deposit all 5, that just scored 5 points for your team. Now the Fracture locations themselves, they spawn in random places. I mean, the places themselves are kind of predetermined, like where they go. It's not like it's going to put it like off the map or in some really awkward corner or something like that. The locations themselves are predetermined, but which location it's going to spawn at next is always going to be random. Aside from the first one, the first Fracture location is always going to be in a middle map sort of area. And then from there, it goes to one of the predetermined spots at random. So the game mode, at its current state, it only goes to 60 score. So once you get 60 score, you win the game. And a lot of people, myself included, have been kind of speaking out against this and trying to get them to bump that number up. And it does seem likely that they will change this number. And a few other things could be changing in this game mode as well. Treyarch was very open about this. They said that things could very, very easily change in this game mode based on community feedback, as well as what they see with their stats and everything like that. So just keep in mind, down the road, some of these things may end up changing a little bit, but the overall way that the game mode plays should remain fairly constant. Now the last thing I want to go over before we get into the more specific tips for this game mode is the score that you earn, because a lot of people just want to know exactly how much score is earned for performing certain actions. So a kill is going to be 50 score for every single kill you get, aside from score streak kills, which will only be 25 score. So this is similar to Safeguard. Now, if you collect a core file, it can be either denying a core file, like collecting a blue core file, or just picking up a red core file. You get 25 score for doing this. Also, if a teammate collects a core file from a kill that you got, so if you kill a guy and he drops a red core file, and then your teammate goes and picks that red core file up, you still get plus 25 score for that. So that's really nice. If your teammates are still stealing your core files, you still get a little bit of credit for that. I will say though, if that teammate then goes and deposits that core file, you don't get any credit for that deposit. You won't be rewarded any score at all. And then finally, for every one of those red core files that you deposit in the fracture location, you get 50 score. So if you take in like 3 of those, you'll end up getting 150 score total. So there we have it. That's the score breakdown. Now let's get into a few of the tips that I have for this game mode. The number one tip that I have that I'm seeing a lot of people not really follow is don't get tunnel vision in this game mode. I've been seeing this a ton. Basically, somebody kills a guy and they immediately just rush over to pick up that core file. Enemies in this game mode tend to travel in packs, which is another little tip that I have. And this is just based on how the spawns end up working, and it's due to the fact that everyone tends to be focused on that one objective point, so they're all trying to go to one area. So when you kill an enemy, don't just immediately sprint over and try and pick up his core files, because it's very likely he's got another teammate that's next to him that's able to kill you if you just blindly rush that. Same thing goes when you're carrying a bunch of core files and you're trying to get to the fracture location. Be very cautious when you approach that fracture location, because oftentimes you'll have an enemy camping it. So number 1 is avoid tunnel vision. Number 2 is make sure you're targeting enemies that have orbs, and also make sure you're trying to keep teammates alive that have orbs above their shoulder as well. Like I said, this means that they are carrying core files in their inventory, and therefore if they're a teammate, they have the ability to score some points, and if they're an enemy, they also have that ability to score some points, and if you kill them, you instantly turn all of those into blue core files for them, and therefore they can only really deny those at that point. They can't pick them up again and continue taking them to try and score some points with them. So if you get into a situation, let's just say you like run into 3 guys head on and only one of them has an orb above their shoulder, you know you're going to die, but you have the opportunity to take out one of them. Always target the guy with the orb, because even if you kill him and then die immediately after, every core file that he has now turns blue for those guys, and they can only deny it. They can't score any score for their team. Next up, a big thing to remember is if you see a blue core file on the ground and an enemy is about to pick it up, oftentimes it's a very smart idea to let him pick that up and then kill the guy. This is only really if you're confident that you can kill that guy, but this is a really good thing, and the reason you want to wait for him to pick up that blue core file before killing him is when he picks that up, it now converts that to a red core file, and once you kill him, he drops that extra red core file, which you can now use to score points, whereas that blue core file before, all you could really do is deny it and get that plus 25 score and no points for your team. So this is something that I like to do a lot of the times. Maybe one of my teammates just died that was carrying a bunch of those core files, and he dropped like 5 or more blue core files for me, but those are red core files for the enemy team. If I see an enemy like blindly rushing in towards them and he's not paying attention to what's going on and I'm confident I can kill him, instead of killing him before he can make it to those core files, I just wait that little half second or second that it takes for him to get to those core files. Then I kill him, and now he's dropping a bunch of red core files, and I can use those to score points for my team. The next tip that I have is, at least at this point in this game mode's life cycle, there is no bonus for depositing multiple core files at once. So collecting 10 core files, while it is extremely satisfying to deposit all 10 core files at once, there's no benefit for doing that. If anything, you're just risking things even more by carrying around all these core files that could easily be denied if you end up dying. So if you get a core file and you're really close to that fracture location, just go ahead and deposit it. There is no need to hoard them and deposit them all at once. This may change in the future, but in its current state, there is no bonus for hoarding. As for specialists, my favorite specialist to use in this game mode is kinetic armor. Simple reason for that is it's extremely versatile, so it can help you win gunfights, especially against multiple enemies that you otherwise wouldn't be able to win. And also you can use it when you're depositing core files. If you have a lot of core files, like I said, you don't deposit them instantly. It takes maybe a couple seconds to do if you're carrying a bunch. And you're in a very vulnerable position if you're trying to do that. You can pop kinetic armor to stay alive that little bit longer and deposit more core files. So that's the one that I would recommend using. Of course, you can use whatever you want. It's just the one that I'm really enjoying using in this game mode. Also, I do want to point out that at the time of me recording this video at least, there is a bug with combat focus and it's not working properly in this mode. It works fine for kills, but it's not working fine for any of the objective score, so like picking up core files or depositing core files. Apparently, it's not working properly right now. This appears to be a bug that will likely be fixed in the near future, but as it is right now, it's not working properly, so don't use combat focus. As for score streaks, you can use pretty much anything you want in this game mode. Even though it's only 50 score per kill, there's plenty of other score to go around, so high streaks are definitely attainable in this mode. A couple streaks that I really like that is accessible to most people is Guardian as well as Hardened Sentry. Simple reason for this is you can use these to shut down those fracture locations and make it so that the enemy team essentially can't score any points while these score streaks are alive. So these are my top 2 favorite streaks for this mode, but you can easily earn the higher streaks as well, like Wraiths and Motherships and stuff like that. So if you are a really confident player, throw those high streaks on if you want. If you aren't so confident, I would recommend the lower streaks, but try to throw in like a Guardian or a Hardened Sentry because when you earn them, they can absolutely shut down an enemy team, at least for that duration of the score streak. So there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for today's video on Fracture. I'd love to know in the comment section below, what is your #1 tip for this game mode? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.